Well, welcome to Youth Sunday. If we haven't met yet, my name is Anthony, and I'm the youth pastor here, so I have the chance and opportunity to work with all 6th through 12th graders, as well as parent involvements. And then, obviously, if you don't know this, I'll spoil it all right now, but the youth ministry is incredible, and that's not because of me, that's because of our team of leaders. So real quick, can we give a round of applause to everyone who serves in the youth ministry? Thank you. Could not make it happen without them. But for Youth Sunday, we felt like it was the perfect opportunity to get started a little bit differently than normal. We figure we normally have pretty similar services week to week, so we wanted to switch it up. And since we've been talking about summer camp, we spend a lot of time advertising it. I know a lot of you out there were so generous and you donated to summer camp, and I want you to know that because of that, all these stories you're gonna hear today were made possible because we sponsor over 70% of our students that go to summer camp. So every penny that you gave, yes, that's worth another round of applause. A lot of clapping. But seriously, from me to you, thank you so much, because when you hear these stories, you'll understand the life change that happens at summer camp. It's incredible, and it really would not happen if it weren't for our generosity. So I have some people I want to introduce you to here today. You can't play favorites in youth ministry, so if you're like, these are his favorites, you're already wrong. They're all my favorites, okay? But what we want to do is we want to give you an inside look at summer camp. So I want to introduce you to a couple people. This is one of our leaders. His name is Josh. Wow, round of applause for everyone. This is a graduated senior, still one of our students. We love her a lot. This is Lily. And then junior, right? Going into junior year, he made it. He made it, ladies and gentlemen. Make some noise for Braden. He made it. But every single one of them was at summer camp this year. And so I figure instead of me just telling a million stories, we'll let them tell some stories. So I'm gonna ask 3 questions that they're each gonna answer just so you can get some different perspectives. You're gonna get a leader's perspective, you're gonna get a girl's perspective, and a guy's perspective on summer camp. So to start off, just because a lot of you don't know what summer camp is, there's a lot of things that take place within summer camp. A lot of free time activities, including a lake and just a million different things. So we're gonna start by asking the question, what is your favorite part of camp?
My favorite part of camp is watching the kids do all the comps. And then this year was actually my first of like 3 years that I actually got to participate in Mud Bowl. That was a lot of fun. If you've never heard of what Mud Bowl is, it's basically you get into a pond and then you rub and it's like a pond in the loosest word of a pond. It's like, I don't know, 25 by 25, and it reeks. And you go into the bottom of this puddle and you rub mud all over your face, and you throw away the clothes and the shoes after because it's just disgusting. And so you play different games. And so that's probably my favorite part is the comps, but Mud Bowl this year was pretty fun because in middle school, we almost swept all the Mud Bowl comps.
Yeah.
So.
We won, by the way, both camps, so no big deal, but we did win. We did win both. Loud pop for that. Mud Bowl, 25 by 25, 300 students and over 100 leaders, all in this 25 by 25, smearing mud on each other and on yourself. Lily, what about you? Favorite part of camp?
My favorite part is also the comps because you get to compete against other churches, and it kind of forces your whole youth group to talk to each other, and you end up making connections with people that you don't normally talk to on Wednesdays. So that's my favorite part.
Yeah, except our youth group, because they're all close-knit friends, right, Lily? Everyone loves each other. And for those of you that don't know, I went to college, so I'll go ahead and throw this out there. When they say comps, it's just short for competition. Braden, favorite part of camp?
My favorite part would probably have to be the people, new people I met and my friends that I got to hang out with. And I also like the worship.
Yeah. Braden here won't brag on himself, so I'll go ahead and do this for him. But when I mentioned we won, one of the challenges was in the lake, it was 10 yards, 20 yards. It was up to 45 yards or something. They would throw up these inflatable donuts, and you had to throw footballs in them. So one of our students, his name's Yair, he threw the football, wind it back. It was 2.5 feet. And it was hilarious. And then we were oh no, all of our athletes can't throw. What are we gonna do for this competition? And then Braden stepped up and nailed the 45-yard donut.
Thank you.
Clout. That's what we call clout. That's what we call clout. As you can tell, we're pretty lighthearted as a youth ministry. We have a lot of incredible moments with God, but I believe, and all of our leaders believe, that the only reason we're able to have deep moments in our relationships with students and through our relationship with God is because we build trust with students. And one of the ways that we build the trust with the students is by showing up in areas that might not be so serious. So What I mean by that is at church, we're pretty scheduled. We have a routine. We have kind of like an ultimate goal that we want to get at some point during the service. But when we do things like show up to students' games, show up to students' parties, go to graduation events, even at summer camp, we have a lot of moments where it's maybe not as structured, and we have the opportunity to build our relationship in a little bit of a different way because we're able to have more fun because it might not be as structured of a setting. So at summer camp, there are a million, like 6 or 7 million hilarious moments that happen every time. And so what I want to do is I want to ask all of you, what is a funny moment from camp? Appropriate as well.
So my funny moment is the last night we tell the kids, like, hey, don't stay up every night until the crack of dawn. It's not gonna be good the next day. But the last night, hey, clean up your room, or let's like put your stuff away and you can stay up as late as you want. 2 of my boys were like, no, it's like 9:30, 10 o'clock. I'm going to bed, Mr. Josh. And I said, okay, great. So we all went into a room until I think it was like 1, 2 o'clock. We came back and the 2 boys are asleep. And 3 of the boys were like, Mr. Josh, we had some sugar and some other things. And so we're gonna stay up. I said, as long as you don't keep me up, I'm okay. And so in these rooms, there's like a little half wall and they go behind it and I can just hear them going.
They're praying normally. Normally they pray behind there, right?
What I learned about some of your 6th grade boys is that they talk in their sleep. And so one of the boys like kicks the wall and goes, oh no, my wallet. And the boys you just hear the 3 boys that are still awake just start laughing so loud. They're pounding. And I was like, okay, I looked at my phone, like it's 3:30 in the morning. And like I started giggling too because I still hear him. He's like, no, my wallet. So that's like this year is probably my funniest moment because your 6th grade boys, they talk in their sleep. So yeah, get them checked out.
Oh yeah, and the 6th grade boys are also my favorite because they show up with all the energy and they're like, I hope you're ready. We're not sleeping. And then it's 10:15 and you're like, first question in small group, and they're like, one eye's closed. They're like not even there. One of my boys fell asleep in the middle of small group. We finished group. It was like 10 minutes. We finished group and someone was like, I'll pray if we can go to bed. I was like, all right. So he prayed, and as soon as we're done with prayer, I won't say his name, but I yelled the kid's name to wake him up, and he went. I was like, all right. Lily, funny moment from camp.
Okay, mine was probably from middle school camp too.
She's a leader at middle school.
Yeah. I met this kid, the 6th grade boy, and I spent a whole meal with him, teaching him how to shuffle and do the bridge because he didn't know how. And I know his name, but I don't think he knows my name because every time he sees me, he just goes 6, 7, and he doesn't actually know my name. And so when we were on the way back, the girls' bus was full, so I had to ride on the boys' bus. And he just, he doesn't know my name. He just stood on his seat, and he just goes, 6, 7, from the back of the bus. So he doesn't know my name.
Classic. Welcome to leadership, Lily.
If you're in here, her name is Lily.
If you're a student who's been here, my name's Anthony, by the way. Braden, funny moment from camp.
So there was a lot of funny moments, but probably the cabin times and like the inside jokes from the cabin times. Like 6, 7 mongos and stuff like that. It was like, we had a lot of inside jokes. So that was really funny.
That's great. There are a lot of inside jokes. My favorite thing about Braden is he was in my dorm. We had a pretty fun dorm this year, and there wasn't a lot of sleeping. But Braden would fall asleep. He doesn't know I'm telling you all this in front of him, but he would fall asleep and wake up mid-song. Like, we'd all be talking, and he'd fall asleep in the weirdest ways, and then he'd wake up, and he'd be like, body like a back row. Like, just a random country song. And we'd be like, what? You could ask the boys in my dorm, I swear. And he'd just roll back over and would be back asleep. Like, he'd just wake up mid-country song. It was awesome. It was awesome. So summer camp is filled with so many different moments. Like I said, we have funny moments. Everyone has kind of their favorite thing, but overall, summer camp tends to be the exact same way. We show up, some people are nervous, some people are excited. There's normally no in between. I've never met anyone who's like been to camp before and didn't like it, number one. And I've also never met a student who's never been to camp and wasn't somewhat nervous. So the first night of summer camp is always like, we're just feeling it out. Like, this is why they don't do Mud Bowl the first day, right? They do this a couple days in because they know that students are trying to get acclimated to the environment and a whole different feel of things. But normally by the second night, everyone seems to be locked in. It's like they've stepped out of their nerves, they've stepped out of their preferences and all of their things that they're expecting, and they kind of just like enter into the full experience of camp. And so a part of the reason I picked all 3 of them is honestly, I could have pulled all 160 students we took to camp and had them tell you a story of something God did in their life. But I feel like the perfect way to end the panel is I'm gonna go across and I wanna have each of you tell us something that God did in your life or something you saw God do in someone else's life. Because camp is filled with moments that are honestly just like night and day stand out because of what God does, because he just seems so much more evident at summer camp, which we'll talk about in a while.
I would say being a leader and then also being a dad of someone who, like my oldest is in 5th grade right now, so a lot of these boys that I was around are like a year older than my oldest. And seeing them have the conversations that they were having is really cool. And we do like a gospel night where they ask 4 questions, and the pastor who gets up, he's like, you're gonna have people who are gonna stand up for all 4, and they shouldn't, but you're gonna see them. Luckily, none of our kids did. They actually listened, which is really cool. But I think I had 7 boys, 6 or 7 boys in our room, and all of them were like a rededication or a like wanting to deepen their, like taking that next step in their faith. And so having that conversation with each and every one of them, and then stopping at the end, and I was in a cabin with another leader, and I was like, hey, what we're gonna do is for the next 10 minutes, you guys are gonna journal. And I want you guys to journal about what rededication means to you, or what that next step that you're going to take is. And then we're gonna step out so that you're not feeling a pressure from an adult staring at you, or we're not distracting you. And we gave them 10 minutes and we walked back in. And 6th grade boys are interesting. Like there's a depth, but they're only gonna go so deep. And so when you ask the boy, like, or one of the boys, like, what'd you write? Oh, I don't wanna share it. And then what was cool is the next day, one of the leaders came up to me and she goes, hey, did you know that this boy, he wants to be a pastor? And like that moment that he's writing in there that he didn't want to share because it was so deep, he was willing to share it with another leader. I was like, oh man, awesome. And it has nothing to do with me. It has all to do with that 10 minutes that he had to enter in and really be like, this is what I want. I feel God calling me.
Yeah, incredible.
Last year was my first year going to summer camp, and I didn't grow up in church, so I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just going because it looked fun. But my best friend invited me to youth group like the year before. So I'd been coming to church for a year at that point, but I still didn't really know like what anything meant. And then I went to camp, and it was a blast last year. And then that was the first time that I like truly felt like I could say I felt the presence of God in my life. And I ended up giving my life to God that night, and then I got baptized the next day. And then this year, I just felt called to make more steps in my faith, and then I also got to go as a middle school leader and help guide them. So that was fun.
Yeah, and Braden, before you share, yeah, round of applause. But this, like, there's a reason why we do this, right? There's a reason why every single leader volunteers in youth ministry, and it's not just because we prefer to spend our time with the teenagers of this generation, right? So it's because when we have people like Lily, students like Lily that show up and don't know why and have that one moment with God that changes everything, you see the fruit of it. Like, she just told you a year ago she accepted Jesus, and now she's one of our consistent middle school leaders that's now making a multiplied impact in the lives of so many of our girls. So one more time for that. Shout out to Lily, and also so many more students have made that same decision. Braden, what about you?
So I've been going to church for a while, and also last camp, I decided that I was gonna actually take my relationship with God 100% seriously and like dive into reading the Bible and stuff. And so I was doing that for pretty much the whole year until camp. And I was like thinking and praying that I wanted to get baptized at camp. So then at camp, it was also the gospel night, and it was the 4th decision where you want to take the next step in your relationship. And so I stood up for that one, and then I ended up getting baptized.
Yeah, Round of applause for that too. And I'm gonna brag on Braden too since we're here, but I've been around him as long as I've been here at the church. He was one of the first students that was here, and he has grown so much. Like, you've seen him ask the questions that he's wanted to ask. You've seen him grow and grow and grow. And what I love about him is he's always himself. He lights up the room, but also you can tell that he has taken his relationship with God seriously recently. So very, very proud of you and honored to be around you too. But Josh, I won't say anything nice about you. You know I love you. Everyone knows I love Josh. If you don't know that, I love Josh. So real quick, let's make a round of applause one more time for all of them. Thank you all. You guys have done great. I'm gonna share another funny story, and I'm not stalling while Josh brings me my table, I promise. But another funny story. When I was in the 6th grade dorm this year at camp, we had, every morning, it was me and this leader named Jet. I don't know if he's here. I think he comes to second service. But me, a guy named Jet, another kid who went to camp 2 years ago for the first time, got saved, gave his life to Jesus, went to college, and has continued, thank you, Josh, has continued pursuing Jesus while he's at college. An amazing story. Comes back from college and is like, hey, I want to serve. What can I do? So he goes to camp with us. We're in the 6th grade boys dorm, and every morning we're waking up, we're brushing our teeth, and when we brush our teeth, we hear, and I'm like, what is that noise? I walk out to like the main section of the room. I don't see anything. Next morning, it's me, Jet, and Dawson. And the next morning, all 3 of us are brushing our teeth, and we hear, and I was like, all right, something's up. Someone's got a radio. There's something going on in here. I don't know what it is. Still can't figure it out. Every morning this happens. And then the very last morning was like the night he said everyone stays up the night before. All the students stayed up super late, which means we woke up and brushed our teeth, and we were the only ones up. Everyone else was asleep. There was a kid just sleeping on the hardwood floor. There was a kid like against the bathroom wall, like he just like had an encounter with John Wick, and it didn't end in his favor. Like it was like everyone was spread out in different spots. And I started to hear like, and I was like, oh, now's the time. So I walk out and I just stand in the corner, and I'm like watching all these kids, like who's on a radio or something. And I was like, boys, time to get up. I yell, and I hear this kid gets up, that kid gets up, another kid gets up, and I hear it again. And Jet goes, yo. And we turned and we discovered one of the 6th grade boys would zip himself up in his sleeping bag, reach his hand out through the top, pull in the thing, and knot together his sleeping bag from the inside. He would literally cocoon himself to sleep at night. And so that sound we heard every morning was him in his dark sleeping bag trying to figure out how to untie the knot that he had tied. And I just went, 6th grade. That's so funny. But summer camp is incredible. So we have a lot of incredible things we're gonna celebrate today. We have baptisms later today. So it's a big, big Sunday. We have students getting baptized still that had big moments at camp. We have a bunch of adults getting baptized, a bunch of young adults. It's gonna be an incredible day. I think we have 25 total baptisms today. So round of applause for that as well. Super incredible Sunday. But I felt like recently, and the students they haven't heard this full message, but they've heard me process out loud with them, because leading up to camp, I've told them the same thing that I've been saying since we get back from camp, but I always say, I have a love-hate relationship with summer camp. Like, there's a part of Anthony that deeply loves summer camp, and I wholeheartedly believe in summer camp. I think it's valuable. I think it's something we need, and some of that is biased because I myself was saved at a summer camp. I got involved at a church that ran one of the largest summer camps in the U.S. That's where I got my first serving opportunities. I've done all the things when it comes to summer camp, so I love that part of it. But then there's another side of me that hates summer camp. And when I say I hate summer camp, I don't just mean that in a dorm of 6 or 7 boys, one of them showers once that week. That's not what I mean. I'm not just talking about the smell or the meals or anything like that. Like, I'm talking about this, like when it comes to the overall point of summer camp, that ultimately every student who would step foot on the campground would experience and encounter Jesus. That's the goal. So when I talk about that, I love that, and yes, that's the goal, but part of the reason I hate it is also attached to that idea that every student on the campground would experience and encounter Jesus. And it's not because I don't want them to experience and encounter Jesus, it's that summer camp is so different than their everyday lives that they almost get in this mindset that once a year, during the summer, for 5 days at summer camp with Rice City Youth, I will encounter Jesus. And it's a good thing that they have that expectation and that idea of summer camp, but also it really frustrates me because your boy preaches to them twice a week. And God has to check me. Sometimes the pastor is like, God loves you, and the students are like, I'm like, I texted you that. You didn't even thumbs up me, bro. Like, what are you, like, I sit there and I'm like, it's incredible that they have these moments with God, but it's so frustrating to me that they limit their encounters with God to once a year. And so I've been on this kick recently of talking to them, and I said, I'm gonna be honest with you, this is what I told them. I said, my hate for summer camp, it really shows after camp, which is like a little bit twisted because you're like, but all those amazing things happened. And I'm like, yeah, but how do we get more amazing things? How do we continue this amazing momentum, right? And I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, what makes summer camp summer camp? So I've been thinking about this every night. I've been thinking about it when I write messages. I've been thinking about it when I talk to my friends. I've been thinking about it when I hear the stories. Like, what makes summer camp summer camp? And so what I want to do today for the last little bit of time we have before baptisms, I want to tell you what makes summer camp, what makes the summer camp experience what it is. That way every single one of us can understand that the God that is creating those moments and the God that is 100% accessible on the mountain is the same God that we have right here off of the mountain. So if you're an adult or a parent or a young adult and you're like, well, I'm too old for summer camp. Well, you're not too old to know that God's with you everywhere. So I want everyone to listen to this because I've been thinking about it, and I promise I'm gonna do my best. I don't normally like to title messages a ton because I like to be original in my head, and I just feel like I'm never original. But if I had to title this, I would title this, Summer Camp is like prison. Summer camp is like prison. And I'm gonna explain what I mean by that here in a minute. But we're gonna read Acts chapter 16, verses 25, and we're gonna read all the way through 34. So I brought my actual Bible. Anyone have a physical Bible in here? Anyone bring one out? All right, anyone have trouble finding what you're looking for? No, just me, all right. You're like, he's a pastor, he don't know where he's reading. Okay, we're starting verse 25, Acts chapter 16. I'm gonna tell you what's happening right before this. Paul and Silas are on this ministry journey. They're out, they're proclaiming the name of Jesus, they're ministering to people. They end up casting a demon out of a girl, and the crowds of people mob them. They are not happy that they're performing ministry. They're not happy that they're going around making things happen. So they get mobbed by a crowd of people, they get taken, they get arrested, and then where we pick up right here in verse 25 is their response to being arrested and thrown in prison. Acts chapter 16, verse 25, it says, around midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the other prisoners were listening. Suddenly, there was a massive earthquake, and the prison was shaken to its foundations. All the doors immediately flew open, and the chains of every prisoner fell off. The jailer woke to see the prison doors wide open. He assumed the prisoners had escaped, so he drew his sword to kill himself. But Paul shouted to him, stop, don't kill yourself. We are all here. The jailer called for lights and ran to the dungeon and fell down trembling before Paul and Silas. Then he brought them out and asked them, sirs, what must I do to be saved? They replied, believe in the Lord Jesus and you will be saved along with everyone in your household. And they shared the word of the Lord with him and with all those who lived in his household. Even at that hour of night, the jailer called for them and washed their wounds. Then he and everyone in his household was immediately baptized. He brought them into his house and set a meal before them, and he and his entire household rejoiced because they all believed in God. And if you're like, okay, I get it, they're in prison, they're worshiping God, the prison walls shake, there's an earthquake, all these things happen. It's a lot to take in one moment, but when I read this, for some reason, I'm like, oh, that's summer camp. Like, that's literally what summer camp feels like at times. And so I boiled summer camp down to 3 things. Because I'm a youth pastor, I like to keep it between 3 and 5 things, okay? I'm not a pro yet, so I can't do it without numbering it. Maybe one day it'll be like A through D, I don't know. But right now, it's 1 through 3, okay? There's 3 things that make summer camp what it is, and we're gonna talk about each one of these in the last little bit of time we have. The first thing is expectation. The second thing is moments. And the third thing is decisions, okay? Expectation, moments, decisions. We'll start with expectation. This is how I define it. They put the slide up there already, but you can throw it up again if you want. It's what you are looking for matters. This is the most important part about summer camp in my mind when I think about it. Why does summer camp make the impact it makes? Because students show up to summer camp expecting to have an encounter with the living God. They show up to summer camp. They don't go, we call it gospel night as leaders. You know what they call it? Cry night. When you call something cry night, you know what that triggers in your brain? You're expecting to cry on that night. Like, it's that simple sometimes. The way they label it, the way they talk about summer camp, you hear it all over their language. They are expecting God to move. That's why when they come back from summer camp and they're on fire, they might make good decisions, which we'll talk about. They might have good things that happen, but eventually the fire that was set within them from the moments they had at camp dies out, and they end up back in this spot where their expectation has changed. Maybe they get back into their regular everyday life when they realize, oh, it's a lot harder when I have people in my circle that don't believe in Jesus. Maybe it's a lot harder when I have a coach that doesn't believe in Jesus. Maybe it's a lot harder when my teammates don't believe in Jesus. Not maybe, we all know it is, right? But what we don't understand is throughout our everyday life, one of the things that we have to continually manage is our expectation. And when it comes to our relationship with Jesus, I would say that our expectation of him is one of the most important things. What do you expect of Jesus? It's shaped by who you think Jesus is. And we tell the students this all the time. I know I tell them it all the time, and so do our leaders. But if you believe that God is who he says he is, that should impact your expectations of him. Because if God says, I am always with you, then you should expect that even in the worst of the worst trials, even when you feel like everyone on earth has left you, God has not. You have to expect him to be there because he says he is. So our belief of God, our thought of God starts to shape our expectation of God, and that changes everything. I wrote it like this in my notes. I don't want to mess it up, but I wrote, what you expect from God often shapes what you experience from God. What you expect from God often shapes what you experience from God. You're expecting cry night, guess what? You're gonna cry. You show up, you roll up to a youth group, look, I get it. I'm the pastor, and there's some Wednesdays when I'm like, Lord, I wanna be at home right now. But I show up, and I shift my expectation on the way over. And I know I'm talking to you students, but also to you guys. What do you expect from God? Is Sunday just a routine thing where I wake up, I brush my teeth, I put my socks on, I put my shoes on, I go to church, I praise, I leave, I drive by Arby's, I think, how is that place still in business? And then I go home, right? Hopefully. If any of you stop and eat at Arby's, I don't know. We'll get a prayer. I need to pray for forgiveness. But God promised a lot of things. Beef and cheddar is not one of them. So that's all I know. But our expectation matters. It could be as simple as this. When you show up to church, are you expecting to have an encounter with God? When you're in worship, what are you expecting? Are you expecting a good live performance? Because if that's the case, you could get better than here. And that's not a knock to the team, but what I'm saying is that's not what it's about. We don't get them up here because they're good at playing bass and guitar and drums and sing. We get them up here because they're good at leading people into the presence of God. So if you're expecting worship to be a good show, you're missing the point. If you're expecting worship to be an opportunity for you to praise the God that's brought you through everything he's already brought you through, and the God that's gonna stand with you through everything you're gonna go through, then you have the right expectation. So we go into summer camp, and this is the first thing that I always see, and we see it with Paul and Silas. What was their response to prison? Worship. Hymns. Loud. There's not even a verse in between it that says, why am I in here? Why did they arrest me? Please let me out. You got the wrong guys. We weren't doing anything. They didn't even say that they were innocent. They responded with worship and praise right away. That is incredible. What does that tell you about their expectation of God? Maybe that he's bigger than their imprisonment. Maybe that even though they were arrested because they were ministering, they understand that God's got a greater plan. I don't know what it tells you, but it tells me that their expectation of God is greater than the situation and the circumstance that they're in. So that's the first thing I see is our expectation matters. Who do you expect God to be? What do you expect God to do? We see it going into summer camp. They label those nights, they label the moments, but even in their head, you'll talk to them in the middle of February and they'll just be like, we don't have any Southerners, so I don't know why I'm doing this voice, but as if any high school girl would sound like that. I'm just so ready for camp. Like, you talk to them and they're like, life is terrible right now, I'm struggling. And I'm like, well, tell me more about that. And they start talking and talking and talking, and you're like, okay, great, I have a couple ideas, I have a couple solutions right now. And they're like, well, it'll all be good when camp comes. And I'm like, that's like 6 or 7 months to camp, bro. You're gonna wait? You're gonna wait for that? Like, what do you mean it'll be good when camp comes? So when I say I hate camp, it's because of that. Because they get in this mindset that they can only encounter God once a year, and that's not true. So if we're gonna encounter God regularly, we need to understand he's always there. We just have to shift our expectation in order to change our perspective and be able to see him show up in our life. So expectation, the second thing, and this all flow together. When we have the right expectation, you know what flows out of that? Moments. Moments. This is where God meets you in a specific place. in life-changing ways. We all have moments, every single one of us, good moments, bad moments, and I've told this to the students, but if you listen, you hear it in people's language. When you ask about people's lives, they don't say, October 19th, 1998, 11:36 p.m. I was born. They don't do that, right? They might say I was born in 1998, but then they don't say, and then I did this, and then I did this, and I did this, and I did this. It's like even their life is categorized by moments. They say, well, I was born in 1998. My parents divorced. I would say my parents divorced when I was 2. I started elementary school and I had to transfer right away because I got in trouble. And even through my language, I'm not telling you a play-by-play. I'm giving you a series of moments. That's because our brain, our emotions, and our human heart, it registers things as moments. Summer camp, if you ask a student, hey, how was summer camp? They're not gonna say, well, the buses got there at 3 p.m. We got off the bus, we waited until 3:30, we got our colored wristbands, we went to, right? They're not doing all of that. If you say, how was summer camp? They're gonna say, it was incredible. You're gonna say, why? And they're gonna say, because the worship was awesome. The first night they did this worship song and it wrecked me. And the second night, at Cry Night, they gave us a chance to accept Jesus and I stood up saying I wanted to rededicate my life. And the third night we did a worship experience. We went around and it brought me to tears when I actually reflected of the weight of Jesus being on the cross. And they explained their summer camp experience through a series of moments. So when our expectation is right, we tend to be more aware of what God is moving. Like I said, it shapes our experience, and then we're more aware to the moments that God is presenting us with, where God is meeting us in a specific place. Moments are when God makes his presence undeniable and personal. God is always personal, but the chances are, it's not that he's not showing up in your life, it's that you're missing him. When you begin to shift your expectation, you become more aware of him and his presence. And then you step into these moments that you have with God. And the moments are very, very important. But here's the thing that sucks about moments, okay? Moments produce one thing, and that's momentum. And you know who stewards momentum? It's not God. It's not your family. It's not your friends. It's you. A moment with God is completely up to you. It's up to you shaping your expectation, and it's up to you stewarding the momentum from that moment. So yes, summer camp is great. Yes, a lot of kids made big decisions. Maybe some of you, you're like, I can think back to my relationship with God and I can name 5 moments in my life where I know God without a doubt showed up in my life. And that's great, but what did you do with the momentum from that? How do you respond when you feel like God is moving in your life is a better question. Because these students, it's great that they encounter God at camp, but the most important thing is not that they encounter God at camp, it's what they do with the momentum after the moment. What do you do when you get back to your everyday life? How do you respond to situations that aren't from God? How do you respond when you get to that coach or that team or those friends that don't believe in Jesus and don't spur you on to be closer in your relationship with him? Moments matter. And the reason moments matter is because it leads to the ultimate thing, decisions. We shift our expectation. It leads us to be more aware of God's presence. We have moments with God, and then we steward the momentum, which leads to decisions. This is what you do next determines the impact. What you do next determines the impact. A moment is only big if you let it be big. Like you determine the weight of a moment, because a moment can change your life if you let it. A moment with God can change your life if you let it. You have to steward the momentum from those moments and choose, am I gonna continuously follow God right now or am I not? What I love about this story, talking about summer camp is like prison, is number one, you see God immediately move when they're responding. Like their expectations are set aside, you see God move, you see God send this earthquake that shatters the prison walls down, and then their immediate response is what? They don't flee. God broke the prison walls from their prison. Don't you think they're like Scooby-Dooing it out of there? I'm gone, right? I'm not locked up anymore, I'm free, I'm gone, I'm out. You can view me as guilty, I'm running. But they don't run. The jailer even fully assumed, now that the prison walls are down, the prisoners are surely gone. And yet the scripture tells us that they were right there. And they told him, we are right here. Like in the midst of our situation, our imprisonment, we're still not running. There's something deeper here. The way that they are choosing to steward their momentum, the decision that they made was to stay because they understand that a move of God impacts more than just them. And I'll say it just like that. A move of God impacts more than just you. Everyone in your everyday life knows when something changes in you, especially when the God of the universe gets a hold of your heart. It impacts the people around you. It impacts you and your decisions and the way you live, but also the people around you feel it, and it's contagious. And we see that played out right here in this scene, right? The jailer not only encountered God, it immediately tells us his whole family encountered God. That they immediately went and they were baptized. He didn't just experience a moment with God. He didn't just see the prison walls break and say, that's crazy, I'm out. He made a decision to follow Jesus. The jailer immediately was like, okay, you know what? Something's up here. I can't question this. They're claiming they know God. They get arrested. They start worshiping. We all hear it. And then the walls fall. That's not coincidence. I don't care how much you want to overthink it or how analytical you want to be about it. Only God could do such a thing. So how do you respond to that? You either run to God or you run from God. The jailer could have ran out of fear that the walls fell. Instead, he says, how do I be saved? And if you're in the room and you're getting baptized or you're involved in baptism in any way, go ahead and go change and head out to the lobby and meet Taylor right now as we kind of wrap this up. But you see his response. What do I need to do to be saved? And Paul and Silas say, all you have to do is believe in God. And this is one of those moments that I love about summer camp. We see so many students have this prison shaken wall down moment where they say, I've had enough of my own life. I'm done trying to figure it all out on my own. What do I need to do to be saved? What do I need to do to get it right? What do I need to do to actually make sure that God is first and stays first in my life? All you have to do is believe. That's a decision that you make. And you know what? A lot of us, we think, yes, that's amazing. We made the decision to follow God, but there are plenty more decisions that follow that. Because your decision to accept Jesus, the moment of salvation, it's a moment, which means it creates momentum. So our job to steward that momentum means, what do I do next? Because what I do next determines the impact of that moment that happened. So if I'm choosing to follow Jesus, that's incredible and we should celebrate that. But what's next? Oh, you chose to get baptized. That's incredible. What's next? It doesn't mean that the moment's not significant. It means that our job as followers of Jesus is to continuously become more and more like him. We are called to be the representation, the mirror image of Christ. That only happens when we become more like him, and the only way we become more like him is when he is first in our life, always. And I'm a pastor, and I'll be the first one to tell you, when life gets going, sometimes it's easy for God to drop down into my priority list. So if I understand the weight of the momentum and I understand the weight of my decisions, I don't have to pressure myself. I just need to know I need to decide something and I need to commit to it. So if I'm deciding that God is first, that's not just a one-time decision. I have to wake up every day, sometimes 5 or 6 times a day. I need to decide to keep God first. And in the fact that God has been first in my life as long as he is, it goes back to the moment that I first said yes to Jesus. Because I said yes to God and I had to take a next step. I could choose. I could go to the front at the altar call at camp and I could go back home and just forget all about it. I could tell people, yeah, I was just emotional from the worship. Yeah, it was a one-time thing. Yeah, I didn't have my phone. I wasn't distracted. I could come up with a list of reasons that I could disqualify that moment. But the truth is, just like Lily sat up here and said, just like hundreds of students would say, and probably so many of you, once you have an encounter with God, you know he's real. You know he exists. That moment changes things in you if you let it. Some of you have encountered God and you never took that next step. And that's not a reason to be ashamed. That's not a reason to beat yourself up. But I'm here right now to tell you, take that next step. Even if you don't know what it looks like, do it. You're never gonna know the full plan. That's why we need God. If you knew everything, you wouldn't need him in the first place. If you've already been baptized, that's great, but that's not the end of your story. Start serving. Lead a group, join a group. There's always a next step. And the point is, your next step will oftentimes be uncomfortable. But that doesn't mean it's not the right decision to make. We follow up these conversations with students where we get loud, we celebrate, we cheer when they get baptized. It's an incredible moment for every single person that's in the lake when we do it at camp, every single person that's in the tank here. We celebrate, we get loud, we cheer, but the truth is, what's most important is not what's happening in that tank, it's what they do next with their life. Because you're gonna be in plenty of bodies of water, and you're not always gonna be getting baptized, right? If your baptism is your commitment to God, then commit to God. Make the decision to keep him first in your life, even when it gets difficult.